BK member yesterday, I realized that there's no way to bring information in any type of debate form. What's worse is it's almost impossible to debate somebody when they don't have any information or understanding of history or the content of what you are talking about. So this is going to be a brief video. I'm just going to post it on my page or whatnot. I'm not even really waiting for people to get in here. I don't really care about views. It's just I want the information to get out. So this is about the Essenes and Paul of Tarsus. That's going to be the focus of this video. Shalom, Ma. And let's first start off with some basic things here. I know a lot of people don't believe in HaMashiach, or what we call the Messiah. They're Torah only or whatnot. I respect all my people. I love all my people. And just because we have different or varying views doesn't mean that I want death upon you or I think that you're going to burn and I'll be safe. I have no condition where I believe that my spot is secured in the kingdom, the Malkut, the Shamin. All I'm trying to do is do my best to get in there. That's it. Shalom, what's going on with you? And what's up, Poindexter? So this right here is a brief view of, like I said, the Essenes and the Paul of Tarsus. And everybody has varying views on this stuff. And when you get into faith type of views, people will get angry and it can get ugly. So I'll keep it simple. The Dead Sea Scrolls, okay? The Dead Sea Scrolls. This is the oldest writing of our people, right, in our language, collected in a teaching format for biblical purposes. That is just a fact. Anything prior to that, you would have to go to the Septuagint, which is in Greek. All right? So for anybody who does not believe in the Dead Sea Scrolls or doesn't ascribe to the content of the Dead Sea Scrolls, why you believe any of it then? Everything else is Greek. So if you don't believe in that, whether you're Torah only or, I don't know, New Testament only Christian, whatever, if you don't accept that, then you don't accept the people or the culture that came with that. That being said, there are three primary sects going on in Palestine. These are what you would call religious groups or camps going on in Palestine about 2,000 years ago. All right? And this is the Pharisees, it is the Sadducees, and it is the Essenes. You can find this out in Josephus. You can find it out in Pliny. I mean, there are numerous sources that attest to this. The Essenes were what you call the Nazarene or the Ebionites. It's all the same group. These are the guys who were hermobathers. They basically baptized or immersed, right? They didn't do sacrifices. They didn't eat meat. They didn't believe in polygamy. And they didn't make oaths that were to the Father. They made their yes, yes, and their no, no. Sound familiar? They were a community group who sold everything they had, moved in together, and lived as a community. Now, anyone can join them, but there was a process or a period where you had to be accepted. It went from like 3 to 5 years. The point is, this is the camp that Yahushua HaMashiach belonged to. Yes, he was real. There's more proof of him than there is of Musa or Moses. That is just a historical fact. So, people say, well, there's no, proof of him in the scriptures or whatnot. I advise read another version of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are still being translated. And this version right here is by Robert Eisenman and Michael Wise. I'm not promoting these cats. I don't really care so much about them specifically more than I actually just care about the content. Because what's in it is community scrolls, Damascus documents, and the like. And in these documents, it details this community that was led by Yahusha's little brother, Yaakov Sadiq. There are three central figures to this whole thing. You have the righteous teacher, that is Yaakov Sadiq, is James the Just or James the Righteous. He was a ruler in Palestine in Jerusalem in the 50s. Then you have the wicked priest. This is Ananias. Not the Ananias that was with Caiaphas who executed Yahusha, but his son. He was put into power by Herod. And I'll get to that in 1 second. And the last one is the liar or the enemy. This is Paul of Tarsus. Okay? Now the Essenes lived around the Dead Sea, around from Iron Gedi going all the way up to where the Qumran or the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. These were the authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're the reasons why when you read your New Testament, they don't speak about them. You hear about the Pharisees, you hear about the Sadducees, but why aren't the Essenes mentioned? Shalom. The reason why the Essenes aren't mentioned, because that is the camp that is there writing the book. That's the Nazarene, the Essenes, the Ebionites. Ebionites just means poor. The poor. Right. That is this group. So, now let's just go ahead and shift over to Paul, and I'll be real brief here. Paul of Tarsus, I know people would say, oh, he was a Benjamite, he was a Benjamite. Cool, I understand that, I respect that. But who told you that? Paul did. Does anyone else account for Paul being Yashraal? No. Well, aren't we supposed to use 2 to 3 witnesses to establish all matters? But not this, though. This doesn't count. So Paul does say he is a Benjamite. No problem. Paul says a lot of things, though. A lot of them that aren't true. We can get into the lies of Paul, but more specifically, I just wanted to address some things that he said and the history of what was going on there. Paul of Tarsus, he tells you he is Herodian. That is his kinsman. Now, that isn't enough to say, oh, he's definitely a Herodian or Edomite. Now, the Herodians are from Herod. Herod I, they call him Herod the Great. I don't call him that because he's a baby killer, but he was the first Herod. He was the son of Antipas. Antipas was an Edomite, Idumean. He had a wife who was an Nabatean or Arab. They produced Herod I. Herod, he used the help of Mark Antony, who was Caesar, and he killed the Maccabees, the Zadokites. He murdered them right in the temple. Okay? The ones who remained, they scattered. And when they scattered, this started what you call the Essenes. They lived in the wilderness of Judea. That's where Yochanan the Immerser went. That's where Yahusha went. I mean, that is that group. So, Herod the Edomite started the Herodian dynasty. To get legitimacy from the people, he married into the priesthood. This is him marrying Miriam. She was the last Hasmonean princess. Now, there's some speculation of why she actually married him. I personally believe, in my humble opinion, she married him because her little brother was in jeopardy. Her little brother was Aristobulus. He was the last priest that was of the bloodline of Yashraal, the last high priest of the bloodline of Yashraal. That is just a fact. It is a toy boy. What's up, Sam? That is just a fact. It's a historical fact. We can't escape that. So this boy was 14, and he was killed. What's up, Sam? He was killed by Herod Antipas, or Herod the Great, Herod I. He drowned this little boy, 14-year-old boy, in a pool because the people were so happy that he got a royal breastplate and a turban put on his head as a high priest that Herod was jealous of that. From that moment forward, there was never a high priest that existed in Palestine that was of the stock or the bloodline of Yashraal. It just wasn't. They only used Edomites. You in Japan? Oh my goodness! It should be. It's in the morning time over there, right? No, it's late. You're like 12 hours ahead, I think. So the Hasmoneans were pretty much pushed out of the leadership, and the Herodians, who were put in place by the Romans, were the ones who were in control of Palestine. This is confirmed by numerous sources. I'll show you another one. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is Flavius Josephus, the works, Antiquities, and his War Scroll. What you got to understand is there's 2 writings he did there. The War Scroll he actually put out first. That was in the 70s. All right. Now, this was when all the sectarian violence was going on. Titus and his father, Vespasian, they were burning down the temple. It was just bad. So people would say, well, you know, he was under stress, and so you can't really trust what he writes or whatnot. Oddly enough, Josephus is scarily honest. Josephus was cooning. Josephus admits he was cooning. His whole point is he was trying to live. Everybody else was trying to fight. He didn't want no smoke with the Romans. He didn't. He said, they got this. And he admits, he set people up. He tells you, I was supposed to do a ritual suicide. I decided I wasn't going to do it. Then he went out and he tells Vespasian, you are the star child. The star child is the Bar Kokhba. That's the star prophecy. That is Yahusha, it is Musha, it is Abraham. They're all star childs, okay? Bar Kokhba, child of the star, son of the star. So anyway, Josephus is living in Palestine in the 1st century. The next writing he puts out is the Wars. The Wars he puts out in the 90s. He's a lot more, Antiquities, I apologize. Antiquities he puts out in the 90s. The Antiquities of the Yehudim, or Antiquities of the Jews, he puts out after he's relatively comfortable. And he says he speaks more freely and gives a lot more details and facts. Now, whether this led to his death or not, because Domitian killed him not long after he put that out, so whether that was a good idea or not, I can't speak to, but that's what happened. So anyway, Josephus accounts Paul of Tarsus. He has everybody in there. Yahusha, who people mistakenly call Jesus. He has Jacob Siddiq, or James the Just. He has Kepha, or Simon Rock, or Peter Rock. He has all the Agrippa, Herod, Caiaphas. Everybody's in the book. Everybody's there. And people say, well, Paul isn't mentioned. Yeah, he is. He just calls him Saul. And Saul is a family member or kindred of the royal family. He's related to Herod Agrippa. When you go in Acts 13:1, it tells you very specifically, if you read the very part, a lot of people get caught up on the fact that they call Shimon a nigger, right? They do. Now, Shimon is Shimon bar Cleophas. He's the son of Cleophas. This Cleophas is Yahusha's uncle. It is Yusuf's brother. So Cleophas, or his son, I should say, Shimon, was called nigger or Niger, meant black. But people stop there. When you go to the bottom of the verse, it tells you about a man named Manaen, and says that he was brought up with Herod, the tetrarch, or the ruler, the district ruler, and Paul. Paul grew up with Herod. That Herod is Herod Agrippa. Agrippa II, actually. So Paul grew up in the royal palace. That's just a fact. It tells you so in the text. Paul tells you in Romans 16:11 that he is the kinsman of the Herodians. That's just what he says, right? People say, oh, but he says he's Benjamin. I get that. But no one else attests to that. This is one witness. Paul says a lot of things that not all are true. So Josephus speaks about this guy, Saul, who was a cousin to Costobarus, and how they were going through Palestine, tearing everything up. They was breaking up the things of your people because the lower priestly class, they were still your nation. What's up, Crystal? This lower priestly class is where Yochanan Immerser, or John the Baptist, his father Zechariah, he came from that group. That was the lower priestly class. Then you had the high priest and you had the low priest. The low priests were treated like garbage. The high priests were basically the Pharisees. The scribes were the Sadducees. The Sadducees were totally Herodian. They were Edomites. They were the group that they used to marry into the Hasmoneans or the Maccabees. What's up, girl? And this group caused a lot of problems in the 1st century Palestine. So another argument people make, they say, well, Paul was killed by the Romans. Why would they kill him if he was putting out truth? Paul was killed by Nero. And if you don't know who Nero was a psychopath. Nero killed his own mother. He stomped out his own wife while she was pregnant until she died. He did a lot of things that didn't make sense to a lot of people. And the reason why Paul died was because after the Great Fire of Rome in 64, Nero blamed it on the sectarian violence. So he started making examples of people. So he killed Paul. who was, he just dead. He killed his own people. If he killed his own mama and he killed his own pregnant wife, why would he care about killing some Herodian who was stirring up violence? So, back to Paul. So, and mind you, I'm not speaking about Paul's final destination. I don't know what's going to happen to him. I don't know what's going to happen to me. What I'm just saying is I'm just giving the facts. This is the red and blue pill, period. That's all this is, just the truth. So this Paul or Saul, however you want to, identify him, and you read Acts, it tells you he was robbing and beating up and imprisoning the assembly. Who is that assembly? The assembly of the Essenes, Ebionites, or Nazarene. After Yahusha died, they said he died in 33, CE. They can't attest to that. He could have died before that or maybe even after that. What we know for a fact is in the 50s, his little brother, Yaakov Sadiq, was ruling in the fashion of like a high priest figure. He wasn't a high priest, though. He was the righteous teacher. He wore all linen. They immersed. They didn't eat flesh. He died a virgin, okay? Totally abstained from sex. So, what happened was, Ananias, the son of the Ananias who was with Caiaphas, who murdered Yahusha, they did a plot with Herod Agrippa II, right? And their plot was to remove Yaakov Sadiq out of the Palestine. They wanted him gone. Now, they decided they were going to kill him. And so what they did was they had this huge thing where they charged him with heresy. And they went up there and Paul was involved in this. So Paul, with a group of others, they basically pushed him down over the steps of the temple. Now, this right here is called the Acts of the Nazarene, or the Nazarene Acts of the Apostles. That is the recognitions of Clement. I advise anybody, please go read that. This is the real book of Acts. The book of Acts that you have in your New Testament is not accurate. There are some accurate points in there, but it's a totally redacted and mythologized version of the text. So, Paul of Tarsus kills Yaakov Sadiq. He was a part of the group that murdered him. And they murdered him while he was on his knees praying. You may recount this in your book of Acts where it talks about Stephen. Stephen being praying, praying for everybody in need. There was no historical Stephen. That's Yaakov Sadiq. Absolutely, Chris. That's right there. This is the Acts of the Nazarenes. That right there is the writings of Clement. Clement of Rome, he lived in the 1st century too. He studied under Kepha, who you call Peter. Right. When you read what happened in there, you'll see that this is the real book of Acts. Ask yourself about the book of Acts that is in the Bible. Is it the book of Acts? Is it the Acts of the Apostles? Or is it the Acts of Paul? Right? I mean, it don't mention any of the apostles except for like a handful of them, and it doesn't tell you what happened to any of them. But it tells you a lot about Paul. And what we don't realize, what I didn't realize is, this was the Roman Catholics' introduction to Pauline Christianity. They wanted you to accept it. That's why Acts comes right after the Gospels. And then they give you the letters of Paul. Because they're conditioning us to accept it. And if you notice, it doesn't speak about anybody else. So it either doesn't know about them. Yeah, he prayed so much. Exactly. Yaakov Sadiq prayed so much that his knees calloused like camels. That's how much he prayed. And they killed this man, Yahusha's little brother, who, like I said, who died a virgin, and praying for them while he was on his knees. Now, people say, oh, well, Paul converted after that. When? Yaakov Sadiq died in 62 CE, or what you would call AD. The Great Fire of Rome was 64. Paul died in 65. So there's 3 years that separates that. If you read Galatians, Paul's tell you when he has his revelation of Mashiach, he didn't talk to nobody about it for 3 years. So which is it? If he didn't talk to nobody for 3 years, how did he have this great conversion process? After he murdered, Yaakov Sadiq? And then what, he died right after that? Nero killed him after that? Yeah, okay. So, back to Paul. If you read Galatians, Galatians is the account of Paul's version. Galatians covers a lot of things. Galatians tells a lot. When you go in Galatians, Paul makes a statement, My bad, Doc. My bad. You're right, Igor. I should have given you. You want to come on? It's all good if you want to. But Galatians talks about Paul. It gives his accounts of events, right? And in this count of events, Paul tells you straight up, I ain't learned from nobody, no man. I only learned from Hamashiach. Now, people say, yeah, he learned from his vision. What, the vision on the road to Damascus? Yeah. Does Paul ever talk about a vision on the road to Damascus? Anywhere? No. Go look it up. Paul of Tarsus never mentions a vision on the road to Damascus. Why is that? Isn't this the pivotal point of him becoming an emissary or apostle? Yeah. So, if this is a pivotal point, why doesn't he ever mention it? Maybe it didn't happen. I don't know. I can't say. But if he doesn't mention it, I question that. So when you look in Galatians, Paul tells you also that anybody coming with a different doctrine, let him be cursed. So if anybody teaches different than you, they have to be cursed? When you look at Yaakov Sadiq, or the book of James, his letter that he writes, he tells you he's talking directly to Paul. This is a rat beef that's going on 2,000 years ago. Straight up. Paul is saying one thing, faith alone. Yaakov Sadiq addresses that letter of Galatians and says, no, faith and works. This subsequently was the great rift of the Protestants and the Catholic Church. It was over faith versus faith and works. So, Paul says Abraham was saved by faith. Yaakov Sadiq says, no, Abraham was saved by faith and works. And Yaakov Sadiq goes further and says, if any man talks about how his faith is, I'll show him my faith by my works. Right? So, he also speaks to Paul about his cursing people when he tells you, yo, you can't speak blessings and all that stuff and curses out the same mouth. That don't make sense. So furthermore, when you go into Galatians and you read his accounts, Paul has no respect for Yaakov, Kepha, or Yochanan, or John Mark. He doesn't respect it. This is all in his writing. This is not me mistranslated. Go read Galatians for yourself. And he says, they think they're somebody, but I don't, that's nothing to me. I don't respect anybody like that. He actually calls them fake brothers too, the people who come from the Assembly of Yerushalayim. That's what he calls them, fake brothers, right? Then he makes this comment about Kepha and sitting with Gentiles, right? He wouldn't sit with the uncircumcised. And Paul calls Kepha or Peter a hypocrite because of this. Now, if you read the Acts of the Nazarenes, that's the Acts of Kepha. That's Kepha going around doing his ministry, and the other apostles who are with him. He tells you he doesn't eat with Gentiles. He just doesn't. Now, if you get immersed and you get circumcised, then he works with you. But other than that, he doesn't eat with you. It doesn't stop him from talking to them. It doesn't stop him to ministering to them or anything of that nature. He heals them, all that stuff. He just won't eat with you or pray with you. Paul uses that and says he's a hypocrite. Now, they don't tell you what Peter's or Kepha's response was. They just assume that Paul was right. So Paul tells all the Yehudim who are there, y'all all hypocrites. Even Barnabas, he says he's a hypocrite too. So now you have a situation where you have the Yehudim, or they call them Judah, basically Yashua or Israel, all on one side. The apostles, the 12, everybody's all on one side. And Paul of Tarsus is on the other side. Paul say he right and they all wrong. I find that hard to swallow. For me and mine, I'm going to choose to follow the 12 because they knew Yahusha. Paul ain't know him. Paul never walked with him. Paul was never taught by him. Nobody. And this isn't about his nationality, whether he's an Edomite. Ayub or Job was an Edomite. Okay? Obadiah was an Edomite. All right? These may be hard facts for people to swallow, but it's just true. It's not about that. What it's about is about what is true and what is not true. When you look at the first century Christian fathers or historians, read Irenaeus, read Eusebius, or Eusebius was 4th century, but the point I'm making, when you read these early church fathers, they all account for this. They tell you the Essenes, Nazarene, the Ebionites, they did not deal with the letters of Paul. They called him apostate and totally rejected his writings. So I hope I've given enough information where people can at least look for itself. As I said, you can look in Josephus, the Acts of Nazarenes, the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's all there. I appreciate everybody's time. Blessings to you. Shalom.